Have you ever seen someone post about making a fortune overnight and felt that spark of envy mixed with a bit of hope? You tell yourself you're just curious, but deep down, something starts whispering. Maybe I could do it too. It begins innocently, watching, wondering, until it becomes a quiet ache that says you're falling behind. That feeling has a name: fear of missing out. FOMO. FOMO doesn't make us chase success. It makes us chase someone else's highlight reel. And soon, patience starts to feel like failure. That's how the shortcut illusion starts. The promise of something fast, shiny, effortless. We want to believe there's a secret everyone else already knows. So we click, we buy, we bet. Not on the market, but on the fantasy. Every ad says, you can have it too. But it never says, you'll have to wait. The truth is, quick money often costs more than slow money ever will. Because it doesn't just take your savings, it takes your peace. We start trading patience for adrenaline, calling it ambition. But ambition without direction burns everything, even the one holding it. You start mistaking motion for progress, busyness for growth, and soon you realize chasing speed only makes life blur. The faster you run, the more the finish line moves. Maybe it's not about running faster. Maybe it's about stopping long enough to see clearly. Because clarity, not speed, is what builds real wealth. Maybe slowing down isn't losing. Maybe it's finally choosing. When you slow down, the noise fades, and something softer starts to speak. The sound of effort. Real wealth doesn't arrive. It's built, piece by piece, like brick on brick. There is no secret formula, just time and honesty, repeated daily. The quiet days that feel like nothing are actually where everything forms. But our world glorifies noise, speed, results, applause. So silence feels strange, like failure, when in truth, it's preparation. Growth doesn't happen in front of people. It happens when no one's watching. You start realizing it's not wealth that gives peace, it's purpose. Purpose asks for time. It grows in silence, in repetition, in patience. And when you start to serve value, not vanity, money follows naturally. But value takes effort, and effort rarely goes viral. That's why patience feels invisible, because it grows roots before showing flowers. Real success doesn't rush. It breathes. It expands slowly, like dawn. The chase for quick money ends where the appreciation for small steps begins, because small steps done daily build foundations that never crack. In a world obsessed with results, being consistent is a quiet rebellion. The world may not clap for you, but time will. Because time has a strange way of rewarding those who respect it. And when you finally look back, you'll see all progress was invisible until it wasn't. The long road doesn't promise ease, but it does promise peace. We live in a culture that worships more money, more speed, more everything. But more is a moving target. The closer you get, the farther it runs. The moment you get what you wanted, the thrill fades and the hunger returns. That's because the chase was never about having, it was about escaping. We chase money to escape fear, fear of insignificance, fear of stillness, fear of being unseen. But no amount of wealth can fill a hole shaped like self-worth. That's why the richest often feel the emptiest. They've been feeding the wrong hunger. Real hunger isn't for luxury, it's for meaning. And meaning only grows when we stop performing and start being. The more authentic you are, the less you need to prove. When you no longer chase attention, you start attracting respect. And that respect, quiet, steady, is worth more than any applause. The paradox is, when you stop running, the things meant for you start finding you. You start noticing small joys, the kind that never make headlines but make a life. A quiet morning, a kind word, work done with care. You realize that peace doesn't come after success. It's what allows success to stay. Without peace, even fortune feels fragile. But with peace, even simplicity feels rich. You begin to understand that wealth was never the goal. Awareness was. Because once you become aware, even a little, you're already richer than before. When you stop rushing, life starts to slow down with you. You begin to notice things you once ignored. The hum of the morning, the breath between thoughts. These small pauses aren't wasted time. They are the moments that make time worth living. You realize peace isn't found, it's built. One gentle choice at a time, choosing rest over rush, kindness over pride, depth over display. The world may not notice, but your soul does. You start to live more quietly, but feel more alive. Because life isn't measured by speed, it's measured by presence. When you're truly present, even ordinary things feel sacred. You start to see the art in the waiting, the beauty in unfinished things. The slow path may look quiet, but it hums with depth and meaning. You realize maybe the goal was never to be ahead, but to arrive whole. You stop craving milestones and start savoring moments. Each breath, each sunrise, each silence becomes enough. You begin to feel at home, not in a place, but in your own pace. And that's when you realize peace was never missing. It was just drowned out. When the noise fades, the truth speaks softly. You already have enough. Enough time, enough love, enough chances to begin again. The chase ends here, not with victory, but with peace. And in that peace, you finally become rich. Not in wealth, but in awareness. When you stop chasing what's next, you start appreciating what's now. Gratitude feels quiet at first, but it changes everything it touches. You start thanking the slowness that once frustrated you, because you see now, growth never rushes, it unfolds. You stop treating time as an enemy and start treating it as a teacher. The lessons were always there, hidden inside your waiting. Waiting teaches you to trust, not the outcome, but the process. And trust turns the unknown from threat into invitation. You stop needing to know how long and start focusing on how well. The work becomes the reward. The act becomes the answer. You no longer ask, when will I get there? Because you're already inside the journey. You stop chasing next and start cherishing now. Because life was never meant to be conquered. It was meant to be felt. Feel the heaviness, the lightness, the pauses. That's where being alive hides. Maybe this was the real richness all along. Not what we earn, but what we experience. The longer you live with awareness, the less you crave control. You start trusting that life has its own rhythm, one that doesn't need your panic to work. So you breathe deeper, slower, easier, not because life got simpler, but because you did. And maybe that's what wealth really means, the freedom to breathe without fear. Because when you no longer chase, you finally arrive, fully, peacefully, here. Looking back, it's strange how blind we can be while thinking we see clearly. We believed the map others drew would fit our journey too. But every shortcut that promised ease took us further from ourselves. The faster we ran, the less we remembered why we started. Maybe the goal was never wealth. Maybe it was self-acceptance hiding behind it. Because when you finally accept yourself, you stop needing proof of your worth. You stop performing. You start belonging. You no longer chase validation. You simply live your truth. And slowly, you notice how wealth changes its meaning. It stops being about having more and becomes about needing less. Simplicity starts to feel luxurious because peace is rare. You begin to see that richness was never external. It was emotional literacy. To feel deeply is to live deeply, and to live deeply is to need less noise, fewer walls, more presence. The chase for quick money was never about greed. It was about pain. Pain makes us want shortcuts. Awareness helps us walk the full road. And that's where wisdom begins, not in knowing, but in staying. Staying when things are slow, when they're hard, when they're unclear. Because in those moments, life shapes you quietly. And when it's done, you don't become perfect, you become real. When you start living truthfully, people feel it, not through your words, but through your calm. Calmness has a gravity. It pulls people in without trying. You no longer preach peace, you become it. And that presence teaches more than advice ever could. People sense your peace and feel safe around it. You realize the real currency between humans is energy, not money. The more you give from truth, the richer you both become. Because generosity isn't about what's left, it's about what's alive. When you give without calculation, life multiplies in mysterious ways. You find joy in someone else's gain and peace in your own enough. The world feels less like a race and more like a rhythm. You start to dance with life, not compete against it. And in that dance, you discover ease, not laziness, but alignment. Alignment feels like grace, effort that doesn't hurt, motion that feels natural. It's not about forcing life, but flowing with it. You realize you were never meant to conquer the world, just to connect with it. Connection becomes the quiet form of wealth that no market can measure. And once you've felt that, numbers lose their power. You stop counting and start connecting, because what you give stays, not in balance sheets, but in hearts. One day you'll look back and realize you didn't need more, you just needed time to see. You'll smile at the version of you who once hurried and thank them for trying, because even mistakes were just your heart's way of learning to slow down. You start forgiving the parts of you that once chased. Forgiveness feels like wealth. Calm, infinite, undeserved, but yours. And in that moment you realize, peace was never given. It was grown. Grown through patience, through surrender, through love. Love, not as romance, but as understanding, the gentle kind. Understanding that you'll never be finished, and that's the beauty of it. Because a life that's still growing is a life still alive. You stop chasing completion and start enjoying continuation. Continuation, the quiet kind of eternity. You realize you never really owned anything. You were just here to witness. And that's enough. To see, to feel, to be. The noise, the chase, the rush, they fade like echoes of an old song. What remains is silence. Not empty, but full. Full of breath, of being, of truth. And maybe that's all we were ever meant to chase. Awareness itself. Awareness that grows richer the more you live and quieter the more you understand. And as you breathe one last time before the video ends, may you remember, you are already enough.